Once again, welcome to the 2012 Danbury Mayoral debate. My name is Sean Palmer. I'm the publisher of the News Times, and I'm very happy to be here tonight to welcome all of you. Thank you. And all I said was, let's have a debate. Others did a lot of work besides me, okay? But thank you for the applause. And I want to thank all of you for coming out tonight. I want to thank our participants for being here. Thank our media panel, who will be asking the questions tonight. Thank our co-sponsors. You can see their banners up here, WLAB Radio and Tribune Newspaper. Thank you very much. I want to thank Broadview Middle School for hosting us tonight on a school night, no less, so they'll try to get us out of here on time. We appreciate everybody for coming out tonight, for participating from that end of the auditorium, as well as our candidates from their end of the stage answering the questions tonight. So before we get started, I'd like to lead us all in the Pledge of Allegiance. If you could please stand. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. And now, without further ado, I'm going to turn it over to my co-worker, the editor of the News Times, Mr. Art Cummings, who will be your moderator tonight. Art?
Thanks a lot, Sean. I'd like to join Sean in welcoming all of you here tonight. Should be an interesting program. And I'd like to start the evening out by introducing our candidates. To your left is the Republican incumbent mayor, Mark Bowden. And to your right is the Democratic challenger, Lynn Taversack. I'd also like to introduce the broad spectrum of journalists here tonight who cover Danbury so ably. From your left to right, Jillian Morrow of WLAD. Jim Carafor of the News Times. Of Tribune, and Mark Reinroy of Danbury Patch. Sounds like a four-way tie for popularity. Tonight's debate will consist of four segments. First, the candidates will each make a 3-minute opening statement. After that, the media will ask questions, and each candidate will have 1.5 minutes to answer each question and 30 seconds of time for rebuttal. The third portion of the program is the candidates asking each other one question, and then we will conclude the debate with a 3-minute closing statements. Brian Coombs of the News Times, sitting down in front here, will serve as the timekeeper for the debate. He'll be flashing 30-second, 10-second, and 0-second time cards, and I know both of you will honor those to the second. We'd like to get things started with the opening statements, and by virtue of a coin toss, Lynn Taversack will make the opening comments. Lynn?
Thank you very much. I do want to first thank the News Times for holding this free and open public debate, and I want to especially thank all of the people in attendance for caring enough about our city to come out and hear us on these issues. Every 2 years, we really do have an opportunity to look in the mirror and imagine what we can do to improve our city. As the Democratic candidate for mayor, I want to tell you where I think the problems are and how we can turn those problems into opportunities to make our city better. We have grown. We have a population of almost 80,000, and there are awful bottlenecks in the city. In the North Street Shopping Center, in the Mill Plain Corridor, Newtown Road, Federal Road, we can't get from one side of town to the other. We haven't made any traffic design improvements since Jim Dyer paired Baumforth and Maple Avenue, making them one-way inbound and outbound. People can't get to some of the city's most important assets, like Danbury Hospital. It compromises our public safety. I'm glad you all found a way to get here tonight, though. We need to do the same thing with Osborne and White Street, with Park Avenue and Lake Avenue. We need to design a grid system of one-way streets that works for the parallel roads in our inner city. We can't put more traffic lights up. We can't put them on every corner. That only makes traffic congestion worse. Our city budget has grown too, and local property taxes provide about 78% of that revenue. We don't all agree on how the money should be spent, but as a community, we need to agree on what the priorities should be. I don't think we're spending enough on our public schools, and that must change. We have to address school overcrowding, and we need long-term solutions. A family will not take out a 30-year mortgage and make Danbury their home with conditions like we have today in Danbury. We need to create jobs. Mankind laid off 131 workers, Danbury Hospital 60, Cardis 74, Goodrich Corporation 45. We have only a handful of major employers, and we need to attract more. We need more Class A office space in City Center. Price Waterhouse is not going to move into the Pershing building at the corner of West and Main Street. It's too old and dilapidated. We need to create new jobs downtown to put young professionals with money in their pockets on Main Street at lunchtime and after work. And finally, we need to open communication and transparency in city government. The mayor has silenced every independent voice in City Hall. He has surrounded himself with yes men. He doesn't accept feedback or consider any other points of view as valid. He runs the city like a party boss, and he runs it on time, but we need to ask, where are we going? Thank you.
Thanks, Art. I'd first like to thank the News Times, WLAD, the Tribune, Patch, and everybody else for putting this wonderful event together. And I'd also like to thank the people that have come out here tonight for showing their interest in our great city. And finally, I know there's folks that are preparing this event for broadcast, and I want to thank them for taking the time out to broadcast this event. Ladies and gentlemen, the most important thing that an elected official can do during these difficult economic times is encourage job growth and job development. And Danbury, we've been successful at creating a pro-jobs environment. I want you to think about it. Just over the last 2 years alone, we have had blue chip organizations like General Motors, STP, Guidepost, and Whole Foods come and locate their business in Danbury. In addition, we've also been successful at helping organizations like Westcon, Danbury Hospital, Boehringer Ingelheim, Goodrich, Pitney Bowes, DRS Technologies, Macerich, and the Army Reserve stay and expand their operations in Danbury. We've also seen dozens of small and medium-sized businesses open. All of this has happened during the Great Recession. And because we've been proactive in retaining our employers and recruiting new employers to come to Danbury, the city of Danbury has one of the lowest unemployment rates in the state and has been rated as one of the safest cities in Connecticut. And at the same time, we've been able to get our city's bond rating raised to AAA. Danbury has never before been a AAA rated community. And what does that mean to you? That means that, ladies and gentlemen, right now as we sit here, the city of Danbury's credit is better than the state of Connecticut and the United States of America. All of this has happened during the worst recession since the Great Depression. We've also created a system of government that works. We have award-winning services like 311 in the unit. We have rebuilt our infrastructure by repairing bridges and roads. We've acquired new open space like the West Side Nature Preserve and we've become a city government that is smaller and more efficient. But that's not all. We have comprehensive proposals for our Main Street, our schools, our fire department, transportation plans, and for economic development. And we are in the process of implementing many of those plans. By every metric, by every measurement, Danbury excels when compared with similar-sized communities in Connecticut. Danbury works also because we all work together. Democrat or Republican, we work together to ensure that the city's interests are placed first. Ladies and gentlemen, there's really no Democratic way or no Republican way to plow the streets. They're either plowed or they're not plowed. And I've appreciated the opportunity to serve this great community as a small business owner, as a teacher, and now as a public servant. Being your mayor has been the highest honor. I'm proud of the ticket also that we've nominated. We've assembled a great team, ready to lead on the first day of the new term. So this evening I look forward to having a discussion about the future of our city, because elections are indeed about our future.
Thank you, Mark. Now it's time to go on to the question and answer portion of the program. The first question, as you know, a lot of attention has been paid over the last few years to downtown revitalization in Danbury. I'd like to ask both of you to describe your vision for downtown Danbury in the future and what specific steps you would take in the next 2 years to ensure the success of downtown revitalization. Lynn, would you start that, please? 1.5 minutes?
I think Mark goes.
You guys, you're both going to go back and forth equal number of times.
Fine. The downtown district is critically important for the city's economic growth. It's a location for retail businesses, dining and entertainment, art and culture, housing, transportation, banking, and medical offices. But there's a big eyesore in city center, and it's time to fish or cut bait with Kennedy Place and ask ourselves if luxury condominiums are the right fit for this parcel. I don't think so. And I'm willing to meet with the developer and talk about alternatives. It would have been a great location for a new police station. But housing alone, as he's proposing, does not cure vacant storefronts downtown. We need mixed uses. We need new Class A office space for financial services and law firms and accounting and insurance so that we can put young professionals with disposable incomes on Main Street at lunchtime and after work. And we need more public parking at either the original Liberty Street location that was under consideration in the 1980s or behind the Palace Theater. We can't let office parks on Federal Road and Kenosha Avenue beat us in attracting new business downtown because of parking. And we need to keep Andrea Gardner. She's made a big difference in bringing events and people to our city center. And I think City Center can help with business development, but I don't think they should pick up the tab for the position of Director of Economic Development. We need to keep our post office downtown, and we need more pedestrian walkways, pocket parks, gardens, and playgrounds. If you want to have pedestrian traffic, you need to have some attractions where people can walk.
Thank you. Mark?
30 seconds, so I'm going to be...
No, you don't. You have 1.5 minutes.
Oh, I do? Okay.
And then you each have another 30 seconds for rebuttal time.
Got it. Well, we've taken a number of steps in terms of revitalizing Main Street. It's been a difficult, challenging, but exciting process. One of the things is the Main Street Renaissance Task Force just reported back this year, and we've begun to implement the recommendations of the task force. So what are some of their recommendations? Basically, they revolve around regulatory changes to our zoning, regulatory changes to our rules and our permitting, as well as lowering permit fees, lowering sewer connection fees, and incentivizing people to locate their business downtown. And we've had some pretty good success with that. I'm going to give you a couple of quick examples. Paul Mitchell is moving its school off of South Street down to the old Webster Bank building located on the Green. Naugatuck Valley Community College is located south on Main Street. Union Savings Bank will be investing approximately $15 million in the old police station and putting in a new branch there. We've also had spin-off development from the Crosby Street Apartments, Papa John's Pizza, Snap Fitness. The list goes on in terms of Brugger's Bagels. The list goes on and on in terms of the success we've had. In addition to that, we also have to understand that if you're going to change Main Street, you've got to change who's on Main Street. No business is going to locate down on Main Street with the current census tract. So we need to inject people who live on Main Street that have disposable, discretionary income to spend on Main Street. That's why a project like Kennedy Place is so critical to us, because it'll put people who live on Main Street that will demand services, demand stores, and demand all the things that everybody in the suburbs have. And what that'll do is create almost a reverse trend and to draw people back to our city center.
Okay, thank you. Lynn, 30 seconds.
I think we really do have to look at mixed use downtown. I don't think the luxury condominiums are going to be the answer. Charlotte Barrows can't move in there. We need to pay attention to where our workforce is going to live. We need to pay attention to where seniors can live, and that's got to be part of our downtown picture.
Mark, 30 seconds.
Well, I would just encourage everybody to go to Baltimore, Maryland. They use the exact same project to be able to turn down some of their worst neighborhoods by incentivizing market rate housing in the urban core. Now they're the most desirable neighborhoods to live, and they have the best stores in the entire city. So I think that's important that we look at what some of the past practices and what the successes have been. It works, and it's time that we implement it.
Okay. Jillian Morrow of WLAD will ask the next question, and Mark Botten will give the first answer.
23 undocumented immigrants in Connecticut with criminal backgrounds, including 5 in Danbury.
Sure, it's working there. Turn it on, you gotta turn it on. Can you hear me now?
23 undocumented immigrants in Connecticut with criminal backgrounds, including 5 in Danbury, were arrested last month with Immigration and Customs Enforcement Agency. Would you continue or make changes to the city's partnership with ICE when the Memorandum of Understanding expires next year?
I would continue the program because it's been successful. It's been a good program for a couple of reasons. One, it's a force multiplier. It means that we're taking our police and federal officials and we're expanding our capabilities in terms of being able to go after folks that are involved in crime. And 2, it's important to encourage communications with our federal partners. We work every day with the DEA, the FBI, as well as Immigration, Customs, and Enforcement. So it's important that we have that communication going back and forth between the 2 entities. 3, the training is invaluable. Our 2 detectives have been trained in immigration law and immigration enforcement. They want to know what they can do and what they can't do. Jillian mentioned some of the individuals that were picked up during the most recent operations. I want to give you a flavor of what some of the crimes that those individuals were involved in. For example, 3 of the people that we picked up in this program have been involved with sex offenses against minors. 2 of the individuals we believe were involved in human trafficking and human smuggling. 1 individual had 3 DUIs. So my argument to anybody that's against this program is, do we have to wait for a 4th DUI to get somebody killed on our highways before we get that person deported? 1 was involved in a very violent domestic violence issue. There were several drug cases involving trafficking drugs and selling drugs and packaging drugs. And finally, one of the ones that was most scary, and one thing that we need to pay very close attention to, is that one of the persons caught up in that program by ICE and the Danbury PD was caught taking flying lessons at Danbury Airport, 75 miles outside of New York City. That's why we need to do everything we can to protect the health, safety, and welfare for our residents.
Thank you.
I think the ICE access agreement is a great example of the mayor's posturing on a national issue to build his political portfolio for his next job. I won't waste my time. I won't waste my time or taxpayers' dollars on an issue that I can't really fix. Immigration is a federal issue. I'm going to focus my attention on improving public schools and bringing good jobs to Danbury. The Danbury Police Department doesn't need 287G to respond to any kind of criminal activity in Danbury. They have all the police powers that they need. And the spectacle of 3,500 people in the dead of winter protesting the adoption of the plan outside City Hall on February 7th, 2008 hurt our city's image. We were declaring open season on people with olive and brown skin. No corporation with international... how we can be the safest city in the state and overrun with criminal elements at the same time. I really just think that the mayor wanted to make hay. But I will ask the chief of police to provide a detailed report on all arrests made in the city of Danbury through the 287G program, and will evaluate its effectiveness. And that report will be available to the public so residents can take part in that evaluation too.
I would just say this, the reason we're one of the safest cities in Connecticut is because we engage in proactive training like 287G so that our officers have every tool at their disposal to be able to act proactively before a crime happens, not after the crime happens. But more importantly, this is just a difference of opinion that Lynn and I have. I think people that are on this list don't belong in this community. I don't think they've earned the right to stay here in the United States of America. And particularly in this day and age, in a post-9/11 world, we need to know who's here, who's among us, and what their intentions are. That's why this program is so important.
30 seconds.
I was out on White Oak Drive, very nice townhouse community out by Exit 8. Door knocking last weekend. 2 families in that neighborhood were robbed in the safest city in Danbury. They happened to be Indian families. They lost all of the gold jewelry that they had. So I guess we've got to be a little more proactive.
The next question will be asked by Dirk Parafort of the News Times.
When the partnership with ICE was first proposed, people feared that potential impacts could include mass roundups of illegal immigrants and more difficult relations between the police department and the immigrant community. What do you believe has been the impact of the agreement on the city, and who are the winners and losers?
Lynn, minute and a half.
Well, I think you can see the impact in the empty storefronts along our main street. You can see it in the loss of business by every retail business in the Danbury area. Immigrants buy gas, immigrants buy food. They're in all of our stores. So it's had a big impact. It's also, I think, given Danbury a black eye in terms of our economic development. No corporation with international business customers looking for office space would relocate here. We took away that welcome mat that had been there for decades in this city, and the sign at the city limit now says white Anglo-Saxon Protestants only. We have really put Danbury in a very bad light.
You know, I would just say this, that we are proud of our rich multicultural past, and we're proud of our rich multicultural present, we're proud of our rich multicultural future. It is the fabric of who we are as people, and it's something that excites me every day when I go to different events to celebrate different cultures with people. And what we're really talking about here is illegal immigration, not immigration. And there is a distinction. And the fact of the matter is that, you know, I've always believed that the ends don't justify the means. It's not okay to do whatever you want just because you want a better life. I want a better life too, but I don't break the law to get a better life. I follow the laws that are in place just like most of you do out there. So we have to strike a balance. We have to be a welcoming community, absolutely, but we also have to be a lawful community. And it's important that we send that message. I will tell you that I don't think there's any winners or losers with 287G, except the guy who tried to get his pilot's license down at the Danbury Municipal Airport, or some of the other crimes that were committed by those individuals. Because they're being deported, they're losers, and they shouldn't be in our country. But I'll also say that I find Lynn's position a little bit interesting. When she had to testify under oath in the Danbury 11 case, she was asked if she disagreed with my request that the state police be deputized on federal immigration laws, and her answer was, no, I completely understand why Mark wants the state police deputized. So now to say today that she doesn't agree with that is a little bit of a conflict in her position.
Lynn, 30 seconds.
I think what we're talking about here is a federal issue. Our immigration system is broken. It has to be fixed in Washington. We aren't going to fix it here.
I would just say that we have have to partner with our federal agencies every day. This list speaks for itself. It's clear these individuals don't belong in the city. It's important that our detectives have every tool possible to be able to enforce the law. This has been a positive program and a positive initiative by the city. I applaud the Danbury Police Department and the great work they're doing with it.
Emmanuel Leaf, Tribuna will ask the next question.
What are your plans to strengthen the relationship between new immigrant groups and local government and law enforcement, since legally or illegally, they're here and they're part of our community?
Mark?
Well, I spend a good part of my time reaching out and meeting with pastors, meeting with community activists, meeting with leaders, advocates, people in the loop throughout the entire community, regardless of status. And let me just say, when you come to the mayor's office, we don't ask if you're here legally or illegally. We ask what your problem is and can we help you? And we try to solve your problem the best way that we know how. So we're going to continue to work in those relationships, and we're going to continue to do the outreach that's necessary. Just 2 weeks ago, I was in a church on a Sunday night with one of our churches on Main Street, talking to them a little bit about what the police department does and doesn't do, and why they need to understand why we have the programs that we have. And so those are the kinds of things that build trust in the relationship between the PD, between the city, and between the people that live within the city. There's no question that we have to be respectful and honor all people in this community. And we do that on a daily basis. And we certainly don't check your status when you come to the door. We try to help you with your problem.
Well, I think one way to build relationships with the immigrant community or with any neighborhood in the city of Danbury is to embark on real community policing here. That's going to involve increasing our table of organization. It's going to involve bringing back that robust bike patrol that we had with Gene Eriquez. These are the officers who can get out in the community and actually interact with Danbury residents, find out what's going on, deter crime, and make our community a safer place. I don't think that's going to be a problem in my administration. I would support that 100%. Let's have a fully staffed police department. Let's have good community policing, and not cops racing off to a crime with their sirens blazing, but officers on patrol in neighborhoods 24/7 where we're having a problem with crime. We'll help immigrants, we'll help non-immigrants, and we'll end up having a safer city.
30 seconds.
Let me just say that we've adopted a table of organization that strengthens our police department. I'm the mayor, the first mayor to increase the minimum manpower, the shifts that are on duty. We've gone from a 7-9-7 under previous administrations to an 8-10-8 system, and soon we'll be ramping up to a 10-12-10 system. So we've increased the TO, we've increased the presence of police, we've created a new traffic enforcement unit on motorcycles that do a lot of community policing, a lot of interaction with the neighborhoods, and we spend a lot of time in enforcement. And listen, the proof is in the pudding. We're one of the safest cities in Connecticut, one of the safest cities in the United States of America. Our PD does a good job.
30 seconds.
The police department has a table of organization with 145 officers. Our population's 80,000, that calls for 180. So I think we're a little understaffed in that department, and we can do better. We can be safer.
Okay, the final part of round one of the questioning will be done by Mark Langloy at Danbury Patch.
And I'm asking Mark.
You'll be starting with Lynn.
Sorry. The question deals with tolerance in the city, and I'm sure, as you're aware, we had a little problem with the high school with some different people, different ethnic groups having a little fight back there a few weeks. And I'm wondering how you might contribute to an atmosphere, you might say, of tolerance in the city of Danbury.
Lynn, minute and a half.
Well, I think that people who know me would say that wouldn't be very hard for me to do, but I'm not going to micromanage the Danbury Public Schools and tell them that they're not doing a good job. I think the incident at the high school last week or the week before was a little bit overblown, and I think it was taken care of quite well. Do we need to have programs in our schools where kids can learn to tolerate differences? Sure, but I think we have them. Are they working? Our high school is so large. You are bound to have incidents like this, but I honestly think they're making their best effort to be tolerant, to prevent these problems, to teach tolerance. I know the peer leadership program does that. I have no problem being a role model for tolerance. I think that I'm on Main Street all the time. I can go from one end to the other and know 30 people, all from different places, who know me by name. And it's being out and among very diverse groups that I think tells people if your leader is tolerant, you need to follow that example. We're not going to close the door on any group and say that they can't come in and they aren't welcome.
Okay, Mark.
Look, yeah, I would just say that there's no tolerance for intolerance. I mean, the bottom line is that we don't quite know what happened at the high school. I spoke with Mr. Picasso, I spoke with Dr. Pasquarella, everybody in the loop in between, and the sense of really who said what to whom and how it was said. But the reality is that, you know, if somebody is engaging in behavior that is racist or engaging in name-calling, those individuals could be subject to criminal prosecution, and they ought to be subject to criminal prosecution depending on the circumstances or what the situation is. So I think it's important for the mayor, for the administration, for the school administration, for all of our elected officials to send a very clear, very united signal that we're not going to tolerate people that are not respectful of others and don't celebrate the very best in each of us. As mayor, I've been proud to do that. I attend events regularly all over the city for various different groups all the time. Whether it be at a birthday party, be it a 15th birthday party, be it a wedding, be it whatever, I'm there to celebrate with those individuals and to share in their joys and their journey through life. It's a wonderful thing to be in Danbury and to see so many different people that live here and to be part of their culture and their community. It's one of our best assets. It's something that we try to sell every day to that multinational corporation that wants to come to this great city.
Dan, 30 seconds. Mark, 30 seconds. Lynn passed.
Okay, I think we pretty much covered it.
Okay, thank you. And Mark, why don't you start the second round of questioning?
Okay, here we are in 2011. The city started an effort in 2008. I think they called it the 2020 Task Force to deal with overcrowding in the city. And obviously, here we are 3 years later, and it seems to remain an issue in the city. And I'm wondering how that could possibly happen. How could that be?
Okay, Mark, minute and a half.
Yeah, I mean, the 2020 Task Force is designed for a long-term, long-range strategic thinking about what we want our schools to look like in the year 2020, hence 2020 Task Force. It's not designed to do short-term decisions making about where to put classrooms and how many classrooms we should have. That's really a decision that's made by the Sites and Facilities Committee at the Board of Education. Now, we'll certainly support them and try to work with them on that. But I have to tell you, I haven't got a lot of feedback. I understand what the problem is, but I don't have a lot of feedback as to what their recommendations are. We did a report back in 2007 called the Savin Report. Most of it was based on facilities and determining, looking at infrastructure, roofs, boilers, and so forth. But part of it was to look at space needs and utilization. Out of that report, one of the recommendations was that we redistrict. This month, later in the month, there'll be a discussion about redistricting some key schools to balance out the numbers as a short-term solution. But we still have a much broader long-term solution, and that's what the 2020 Task Force is doing. They're taking, our consultant is taking the Savin report, they're massaging it, they're going to come back with a recommendation probably in November. We're going to go to the voters in April for a bond authorization to be able to make the changes and create the space that we need. Assuming that the voters are supportive of doing that, which I think they probably will be, we'll be then able to go out and execute that plan and provide all the space we need. I also just want to tell you, you got to be careful of these reports. I've got reports from the late 1990s that said our biggest discussion in Danbury in this decade would be how many schools we have to close and where we have to close them. So you really have to understand that you have to look at who's actually physically in the building and then start making some strategic decisions. I think that was a zero, Rachel.
Lynn, minute and a half.
I think, Mark, what you're asking is who's to blame for these overcrowded schools, and I think there's plenty of blame to go around. You can say that the Board of Ed and the superintendent haven't made a strong enough case to the city council or to parents of school-aged children about our space needs. But my hat's off to Christine Rose from Danbury Patch and Eileen Fitzgerald from the News Times and John Newmuller from Comcast Channel 23 for covering school issues in meetings of the Board of Ed. But our school district has to do a much better job communicating their needs to the public. And the district has to create public support for the building needs of our city. Now, on the other side, the city has a whole lot of blame too. The city ignored the space study that they commissioned in 2006, the Savin report. Every member of the council should have received it and approved its recommendations. The economy was booming. We had a Republican governor with strong ties to Danbury. It's part of our lost decade of opportunities. The mayor didn't drop the ball. He never picked it up and ran with it. We lost the opportunity to build a new middle school. And we lost the opportunity to build a two-level school, elementary school with 45 classrooms on the grounds of Broadview Middle School to replace Roberts Avenue School. The city turned down the location to avoid interactions between younger and older students. So we end up with a one-level school on Osborne Street and no additional classroom space.
Mark, 30 seconds.
The only thing I want to say is that that report was completed in 2007. In 2008, the Great Recession hit. The stock market went from 14,000 to 6,800. Folks, we weren't sure if we were going to make payroll every other week during that time period, let alone embark on a huge construction program. Lynn has already articulated tonight probably $100 million worth of new spending. Think about what's in your tax bills right now. Can you afford another $1,000 in your tax bill simply because Lynn's decided she wants to add 20 new officers to our police department? No, you can't. It's not really realistic. So we've got to have a program that measures these changes slowly and meticulously and implements them over a period of time.
Lynn, 30 seconds.
I think it's the old Yale or jail dilemma. We spent $18.5 million for Ellsworth Avenue School, and it was reimbursed at 50% by the state. We spent $43 million for a new police station that got no reimbursement. I'd rather have a two-story elementary school on Osborne Street and a slightly smaller police station. Thank you very much. Same money.
Danbury's Deputy Superintendent William Glass recently stated that the success rates of Hispanic students in the school system is Danbury's #1 problem, and that they're struggling to find people with expertise to help them. If elected or re-elected, how do you plan to assist the Board of Education in addressing this very important issue?
Lynn, minute and a half.
I think I'm going to be the mayor who works with the Board of Education and not against it. Everyone's aware of our changing demographics in the city of Danbury. 25% of the population is now Latino. The high school, the elementary schools, the middle schools are providing programs for Latino students. No, they're not succeeding, and we have to do better. We have a Democratic governor. I'm more than willing to ask for his support in adding new programs for the city of Danbury because of these tremendous needs. The legislative delegation, they can also provide more funding for us to address these problems. And I'm not going to say that I have an in with anyone in particular, but I think it will be quite easy for me to speak with members of the legislature and get action on those issues.
I just want to address one thing real quick. Lynn often has criticized the police station and the size of the police station. But she sat on the city council and voted for it. And she didn't say, hey, we ought to spend some more money on schools. She sat there and she voted yes. She didn't offer an amendment. She didn't offer a suggestion. She didn't get involved. She didn't look at the plans. She voted yes. Now let me get to the question about, in terms of what the news question was. Look, I think that our hiring should be based on who is the best for the job and what outcomes can they get from our students. And if that means that we hire somebody who has the best skill set to help students that are coming with special needs or special challenges, be they language issues, whatever the issue might be, that's a terrific thing. But I tell you one thing where I think the school board has dropped the ball. They don't hire local people. You try to get your son or daughter who went to Danbury Public Schools and graduated from the high school and went to WestCon and has a teaching certificate at WestCon, they can't get hired by the Danbury Public Schools, they get hired by Richfield, Bethel, and other places. I think we ought to make it a priority to have people teaching our schools that grew up in Danbury. Let me just say this. I understand where Dr. Glass is coming from. He's under a lot of pressure as it relates to high-stakes testing, but the measurement of its student learning in a given year is not necessarily based on what the score is on the CAP or the CMT. It's how much have they actually learned during that year. I'm running out of time, so thanks.
Lynn, 30 seconds.
Mark, I hope you follow your own advice and hire local people. I do want to respond that I did vote for the police station. Every member of the city council did. What we did was we voted to send it to referendum to let the voters in the city of Danbury decide if they wanted to build a new police station.
Mark, 30 seconds.
That's exactly what I did.
Okay, Dirk, next question. That'll be directed toward Mark Bowden.
For the last several years, city funding to the schools has been relatively flat. What effect do you believe this has had on the school system, and how long do you believe that trend can continue?
Mark, minute and a half.
It's me, right? Yes. Okay. Let me say this, that the issue necessarily is not how much funding we're giving the schools. It's more about how is the funding spent by the schools. That's really the critical issue here. And let me give you a couple examples. This year we increased the education budget by $1 million. We increased the education budget by $1 million. In order for us to get $1 million worth of new taxes without increasing your taxes, we would have to have approximately $400,000 or $400 million in new building. That simply is a very difficult target to hit given in this economy. In addition to that, just so we're clear, this fiscal year, the school board had approximately a $2 million surplus. That was money that they did not need for their operations because they had already paid all their bills. They determined that in May or early June. They then took that money and spent it on bills in the future for next year and the year after and the year after. Now those are decisions that aren't made by me and they're not made by the city council. They're made by the Board of Ed and the administration and in consultation, I'm sure, with their elected officials. So the question necessarily isn't are they getting enough money. The question is how are they appropriating that money and where are they deciding to spend it. And there's a lot of other money that we spend in schools that never gets reported. For example, our paraprofessionals receive a city pension. We had to put in a $1.2 million contribution into the city pension fund to cover those employees. We also are spending this year almost $20 million on capital improvement projects across the school system. New boilers at Danbury High School, windows, new roofs, all those things are extremely expensive and they never show up in the bottom line of our appropriation to the schools.
Okay, Lynn, minute and a half.
I think that probably many Danbury residents don't understand that our schools are like a hybrid system. The Board of Education is responsible for providing programs and staff to teach all of the children in the city of Danbury. And the city of Danbury is responsible for providing the facilities. So we are shortchanging the schools, the school district in terms of facilities. That's our biggest problem. And it's a city problem. No, you're not spending enough, Mark. We have overcrowded classrooms. We have instruction taking place in hallways and broom closets. We have children who aren't getting the instruction that they need because we're out of room. And I like to think that the Graustein Memorial Foundation would come forward and say, here, Danbury, we're going to give you all this money to provide all-day kindergarten. We couldn't do it. We don't have the space. No, we have a problem on the facility side. The state provides over $4,000 for every child that comes to our schools. That money goes to the city of Danbury. We need to get more, but we're shortchanging our schools.
Mark, 30 seconds.
One of the things I would do would be to encourage the board, the superintendent, the assistant superintendent, all those guys that work there to think a little bit differently and think a little bit out of the box. I'll give you one quick example. Our director of finance is leaving to go to the Norwalk Public School System. This might be a great opportunity to ask the question, should we really have two separate finance offices with two separate staffs and two separate director of finances and them carrying all that salary, all the long-term benefits, all the retirement benefits. Might this be a better time to have a discussion about we ought to be one community, united, working together, because it's so much better to work together than to work apart?
Lynn, 30 seconds.
Here's another question. Should we put new boilers in the high school and not replace the windows so that the new efficient boilers heat not only Danbury High School, but all of Clapper Ridge and Eastgate Road? Some of the things that our school board does is cost avoidance. They're trying to save taxpayers' dollars.
In this economy, there are plenty of projects around the city that need or want funding, but not necessarily enough money to go around. How would you prioritize infrastructure needs?
Lynn?
Well, I think that I would look to get priorities from the public. That's something that we all have to decide. It shouldn't be just the mayor's budget. When you're talking about infrastructure, you're talking about physical buildings?
Physical roads and...
The roads are in awful condition, but we have to prioritize. What do we want to spend our money on, not how much more do we need to spend? I think one of the biggest changes in our city budget is probably what we're spending on social services. I think the city used to give $1.2 million to local agencies so that they could help people who live here in Danbury. And that has been farmed out to United Way, and a very sad thing has happened. United Way won't cover operating expenses for any of these agencies. It won't pay for rent, it won't pay for utilities. And we've had, for instance, just in this budget cycle, the transitional home, Amos House, have to lay off 2 people because they couldn't get United Way funding for operating expenses. So yes, we have to have different priorities, but priorities not set necessarily by a mayor on the 4th floor, but by members of the community coming forward and saying, these are the things we need to have done. We want safe streets, we want paved roads, we want better drainage to deal with the different climate that we're experiencing here in the Danbury area. So I want your ideas. I don't have a blueprint for what you think is important. You have to provide me with that.
Mark, minute and a half.
Yeah, let me just say, Lynn must have missed this, but we are replacing the windows at the high school. We just got authority from the state of Connecticut, so we don't lose that. So I'm not sure why you didn't think we weren't. But anyways, Lynn knows, she sat on the council, she knows that we developed something, a comprehensive capital improvement program. That program runs through the Planning Commission. It gets vetted by the Planning Commission, and then starts with our planning director, or director of public works, and then moves over to the city council. The city council adopts that, and in that program it adopts certain priorities of spending and where we should put whatever dollars that we have and how we should best spend them. And it's actually, if you look in the budget book, you'll see that some items are single-starred, some items are double-starred. Double-starred means that it's a priority, single-starred means it's deferred, or maybe to the following year, and that's how we have to make those decisions. But the public has an absolute opportunity to come and participate in that. You can come to our budget workshops and hear which projects are being funded and why they're being funded. You can come to our city council meeting and hear why they're being funded. You can come to the budget presentation where we outline why what our priorities are and why we're funding them. And you certainly can do all those things. It's not something that's just made up on the 3rd floor. This is a process that's put in place. The council votes on it, and they can make changes if they so desire, if they feel that there's another project that might be a little bit more important. And all that is part of the budget process.
Lynn, 30 seconds.
Well, I would think that we would have almost all of our capital projects completed by now, because the mayor, over his 10 years in office, has increased our debt by 61% for every man, woman, and child in the city of Danbury. He's been on a spending binge for capital projects, and we're calling it debt.
Mark, 30 seconds.
Look, don't believe Lynn, don't believe me. Let me just quote from 2 of the bond rating agencies who just did their bond rating this month of Danbury. They just did their financial analysis. Fitch says that our debt burden in Danbury is low and is expected to remain so. S&P says the city's overall net debt burden is low. Fitch goes on to say the city's economic profile is strong. S&P goes on to say, we believe that Danbury is positioned well to manage through the current economic environment. We do that because of our conservative borrowing practices. Compare us to New Britain, to Waterbury, to any other community, and you'll see that we are very measured in our expenditures.
Another question, please?
The state legislature will be in session next week for a job session. They've gone listening tours of businesses. Would you implement or repeal regulations in the city, offer repeal tax breaks or credits for small and large companies? How would you attract businesses to stay or come to Danbury?
Mark, minute and a half.
I think one of the things that our state legislature can do, there's a couple of things. One of them is to create some kind of revolving pool of access to capital. We need a system which a small business who can't get capital at the bank or the larger banks can be able to go in, get a clean, easy SBA loan. They have to pay it back. Of course, they have to be vetted for that. But it puts some capital, whether it be for inventory, improvements, hiring, whatever it might be, it puts dollars in their hands to be able to spend. And I don't think we've done a good job at that at the federal level, and I think there's an opportunity there for the state to be able to do that. The second thing is, we really need more tools in our toolbox. Danbury is very limited with the amount of economic incentives we can offer. Remember that cities and towns are subdivisions of the state of Connecticut. We're sort of the children, if you think of it in your mind, the parent and the child, and we can only do what the state gives us permission to do. Danbury could use things like enterprise zones, special taxing districts, all these different tools that are out there so that we can offer a better menu of proposed incentives to businesses that are thinking about coming to Danbury. And the second thing is I've been on the state about this, they need to spend time consolidating and condensing the state economic development agencies. It's a disaster. You have CDA, DECD, CGA. There's about 3 or 4 different agencies that touch economic development. When I bring a CEO from North Carolina or Georgia into those meetings, it's a new person every meeting with different set of rules, different set of regulations, and more bureaucracy and red tape. And what we need to do is become much more nimble and agile with our economic development offerings.
Lynn,
Well, I think it's been a decade of lost opportunities for economic development and jobs, and it started with the loss of the largest tract of industrial zone land in all of Fairfield County being approved for thousands of condominium units in one meeting of our planning commission. That's a terrible loss to our economic development portfolio and to our tax base. But what can we do about jobs? Well, I'd offer tax incentives to projects that actually create good jobs, jobs that can sustain families, not more minimum wage retail or food service jobs. No one who works at the new Cheesecake Factory can afford to live here unless they are working 2 or 3 other jobs too. They're all important jobs. They're important for teenagers to learn how to work and how to budget money, but you cannot work in those jobs and live here and sustain a family. And I will give city business to Danbury businesses that show a commitment to this community. When we contract out for services, I will specifically look at their contributions to nonprofits, or at the percentage of the local residents that they employ, or at the diversity of their workforce, or the fringe benefits that they offer. We need to reward good corporate behavior. And I'll work with the state to create more opportunities here in Danbury for workers to upgrade their skills. We can't just emphasize support and services for business. We need to help Danbury residents get back in the market, the labor market, with skills that our local employers need. I met a man who lost his job at Stop and Shop after 17 years. He can't find another job. He can't pay his taxes. We need to create jobs for him to sustain his family.
Thank you, Lynn. Mark, 30 seconds.
Let me just say, I was only able to get into the Cheesecake Factory once, but I did like it. I thought it was very good. Let me also say that there are 30 full-time jobs at the Cheesecake Factory, so don't diminish service work in terms of its impact on the economy. But really, our economic future lies with companies like Goodrich, Pitney Bowes, Bardens, who are all hiring right now and are looking to expand their operations. Next week, we're going to break ground on a $48 million R&D center at Boehringer Ingelheim. Those are the kinds of businesses that we want to keep and retain in this great city of ours.
30 seconds.
Those businesses can hire people from Naugatuck, Bethel, New Fairfield, and all the surrounding towns. What are we doing for Danbury residents who need those jobs? Tied jobs to tax break, tied jobs to city contracts. Let's move some of our money to local banks that make local loans to local businesses.
Next question, Brooke.
While the Danbury area consistently reports the lowest unemployment rate in the state, there are still hundreds of people in the city who are out of work. What can the mayor's office do to bring more jobs to Danbury?
Lynn?
Didn't we just answer that question? I think that we can play a role. Obviously, I said we cannot just provide support and services to business. We have to get people, upgrade their skills so they can get back into the labor market. That can happen at the Danbury Public Library. We can have networking groups where people who are looking for jobs can use the computers, do job search, talk with other people about leads. It can happen at the old library. We need to encourage those kinds of things here in our community. We have to help people reconnect with their skills and get back in the labor market. And we have to create jobs that they can live on and pay their taxes on.
Really, the three pillars of creating jobs within our side of Western Connecticut are based on recruitment, retention, and expansion. And that's what we keep focused in the mayor's office every day. How to recruit new businesses, and how do we make ourselves accessible to be there for them when they have questions about Danbury? How do we help people stay in Danbury? And we did that successfully with Governor Rowell and being able to keep Barden here in Danbury by working on a whole host of initiatives with that organization. And then how do we help people expand that want to actually grow their business here in Danbury? And we do that every day by providing concierge service for their permitting and providing a whole host of initiatives to be able to do that. But I also have to tell you that I'm a little opposed to requiring any company in this economy to give donations to charities and nonprofits as a pretext to come to Danbury. It seems to me that we're making it much more harder for companies to do business. And if it comes down between giving a $50,000 donation to somebody or hiring somebody, I want them to hire the person. It's more important to have a job than to be able to we cannot as a city, a state, and a country be in the business of picking winners and losers. That's what's the problem with the economy right now. Some businesses get funded, some don't. We have to let the market play itself out, and we have to provide a safety net for our residents who need to get back up on their feet. And don't diminish job training. We've got a great institution, Ridley Lowell Academy, that's open on Shelter Rock Road, that's doing a ton of job training, particularly in the medical arts field, and they're doing a phenomenal job to retrain people so they can get work.
Lynn, 30 seconds.
Suppose there's a firm in Monroe that can do some of our tax collections that doesn't have a single Danbury worker employed. And suppose you have an equally qualified firm in Danbury that has 5 workers who live here. I know who I'm going to hire to do our city work.
Mark, 30 seconds.
All I can tell you is we don't have a firm in Monroe doing our tax collections. It's a nice tax collector. He's a good guy, and we look forward to your payments. Thank you very much. Secondly, I'm just going to say that my job is to get you, the taxpayer, the best possible price and the services that you need. And obviously, we want to give business to Danbury companies, but if it comes down to saving you a significant amount of money in our budget, I'm going to save the money in the budget. By the way, our banking, our biggest account, is with Union Savings Bank of Danbury. We're proud of it.
A city manages organizations that have a significant impact on human health, like care of the elderly and disabled, water and sewage, infrastructure. What do you see the role of the mayor's office in promoting healthy living for all Danbury residents?
Mark?
You know, we've talked about this a lot within the office, and there's some things that I think we can do in the future that we're not doing right now. I'm very interested in, as a former educator and a master's degree in educational psychology and childhood obesity, and trying to get kids moving, get them out from behind the TV, and we've done that by trying to encourage a development of our parks and organized sports and various organizations that do that, because I think it's vitally important to their health to understand a healthy lifestyle, to live a healthy lifestyle. And what we're seeing tragically in this economic recession is that people's eating habits have been driven down to the lowest common denominator. People don't have money to spend at the local grocery store that they used to, so they end up eating at McDonald's or other places. And of course, that's not a healthy lifestyle to live. So those are the kind of messages that we can send. We can support families and parents, and we do that every day in terms of the programming that we offer during the summer in our Parks and Rec department. We can support families and certainly be supportive of them and trying to stay together. One of the best things we can do is to try to help them keep their home, to keep their tax burden low so they don't have to, so they have a home to go home to at night. So there's a lot of things that the community and certainly the city and the mayor's office can be involved in promoting a healthy and safe lifestyle for all of our children.
Lynn, minute and a half.
We have lots of good programs. We need to encourage and support them to keep going. I think, you know, we have Healthy Families, Healthy Living. We have Danbury Hospital involved in that. We have the schools involved in that. We have a farmer's market right here on the green in Danbury all summer long that doubles people's food benefits. That leads to great health. We had a community garden this summer behind the Hispanic Center. These are all things that are going to promote healthy living. What can we do? We can support those organizations. We can use our bully pulpit and get people to support them financially. They can't all come out of our taxpayer dollar, but we can make sure that they're noticed, they're reported, they're supported by our presence and just our continued support.
Mark, 30 seconds.
You know, I would just say that you know, the city can encourage a healthy lifestyle in a whole bunch of other ways as well. You know, one of the things I'm very interested in is bike lanes and encouraging the development of bike lanes within the city so people maybe will ride their bike to work versus necessarily taking a car. That's an interest to me. I've asked our planning director to spend some time thinking about, at least on some of our wider streets, how can we include bike lanes as an option for people to travel. So, and that's just one little area that, you know, I think that we can promote a healthy lifestyle and healthy living. But the city can take an active role in that, and particularly in our design and planning of our communities and our neighborhoods.
Lynn, 30 seconds.
We can also all support every food pantry in the city of Danbury that's helping people who've lost their jobs have enough food to eat.
Mark Langlois.
The question would be, what proposal of your opponent would you implement, that, you know, one proposal you've heard during this campaign, that you would implement, and how would you do it?
Lynn?
I haven't heard a good proposal yet from Mark. I've been waiting. I was actually a little bit scared. You know, we've had several press conferences, and we had one in front of the old Emmanuel Lutheran School, and next week they knocked it down. We had another one talking about overcrowded classrooms, and he ran out to pick up a building, the old GE building on Richbury Road. And I thought, oh my God, we better be careful. 3 weeks, we could probably make every change that we need to in the city of Danbury without even running for election. Just put ideas out there. No, I don't have a proposal of Mark's that I'd like to fulfill. I would like that GE building to be available as commercial corporate space because that'll create jobs for people in Danbury. So.
Mark, minute and a half.
That's a good question, Mark, by the way. I think that, you know, it would be difficult for me to say, is there any one proposal that I would support of Lynn's because it would cost so much. And unfortunately, in this economic times, we have a duty and a responsibility to make sure that people can stay in their homes. It's their #1 need on Maslow's hierarchy of needs. It's home and comfort. That's at the top of the pyramid, right around food. And let me just tell you why that's important to me. In 2010, 187 families lost their home in this city. 187 people lost their home in this city. That's why we don't go out and hire 20 police officers at the drop of a hat, because you can't afford it. And I don't think it's fair to you. You know, I think we have to understand the context of the times we're living in. This is a new economic era. All the rules have changed. Everything's changed. And it's really important for us to be as flexible and as possible in dealing with this new economy that we're living in. And you know, the old rules don't apply. And just because you got $100,000 in your budget last year doesn't mean you get $110,000 in your budget next year. Everybody has to do things differently, and everything has to do things more efficiently if we're going to make it through this crisis.
30 seconds.
I think the mayor's an expert on spending. He's increased taxes 56% since he's been in office, over 10 years. I don't think we need to spend more. I think we have to have different priorities. And that's a conversation we need to have as a city at every level, every day, all the time. Not more spending, different priorities.
30 seconds.
All I'm going to say is I heard, you know, 2 proposals tonight that are budget busters right out of the chutes. One is you want to hire 20 cops. That's $2.5 million that you're going to have to find next year. That's about $1.5 million out of your taxes when you get your tax bill next year. The second one is we want to build a 3rd middle school. That's about a $40 million proposal to be able to do. Even if you get half funding from the state, you still got to go out and borrow $20 million. You're going to pay debt service of about $1 million a year on that building. Oh, and by the way, then you got to staff it. You got to go hire 50 or 60 teachers, a principal, nurses, paraprofessionals to work there. You can count on another $3 million bill just to do that project. Right now, we've got to be smart and strategic in our investment if we're going to make it through this crisis.
Any questions? This will be for the mayor.
Mark, you ran for the governor position in 2010, and when that didn't work out, obviously you went for lieutenant governor. I'm sorry that didn't work out for you, but it has led to your opponent asking the question: does Mark have 1 foot out the door? And I got a nice picture. I was going to bring it, the visual. I didn't bring it, but my real question is, what leads us to the real question is, with this in the back of our minds, why should we vote for you?
Sure. Look, running for lieutenant governor, running for governor was a great honor in this state. We have a beautiful state, and I was proud to tell the story of Danbury to people all across Connecticut. And by the way, it was a rewarding experience professionally. I met with CEOs and mayors and businesses all across Connecticut, and I told them how great Danbury is. I told them what a wonderful community this is. So I was honored to be able to do that, and certainly thought it was something that was beneficial to our community. But let me just say something. I've never missed a city council meeting. Never. I've never missed a city council meeting. I'm like the postman. I always show up. And so at the end of the day, I don't make any apologies for having an opportunity like that. But let me address your question directly. I don't intend on running for any offices in the next 2 years. I intend on doing what I love to do most, more than anything. As I said to you in my opening statements, being mayor is the highest honor that I've ever had in my life. It's right below getting married to my wonderful wife, Phyllis. It's not above her, it's below her. So she's out there tonight, I'm going to say that. But in all sincerity, it's been a complete honor. And if that's all I ever do in my political career, I can walk around and say, I was mayor of the city I was born in, I was raised in, I was educated in, and I taught it. That's a pretty good thing to say.
Do you have a different question?
Well, yeah, you didn't run for lieutenant
No, I
governor.
didn't.
But I did have a similar question, you might say. The similar question is that in the past in Danbury, we've all noticed that people, candidates in the Democratic Party who have challenged Mark have started their campaigns typically as long as a year in advance. And I think of Chris Sotero. Tommy Arconti started in February. I think Dean Esposito in March. I was there, I remember it. And what we all heard was you couldn't find a candidate, and then you had to run to save the bottom of the ticket, and that's why you ran. So then I asked the same question that I asked to the mayor. Why should people vote for you?
Lynn, minute and a half.
Well, I guess that would be because of my qualifications, Mark. I've lived in Danbury all my life. I raised my children here. I've been an active volunteer in many local organizations. In fact, I have a mental Rolodex about each one does to make our community a better place to live. I've served in public office at both the state and local level. I have a couple of college degrees, including a master's degree in urban education from Antioch College. I taught for about 8 years, met my husband, and took time off to have a family. I spent 25 years in a second career as a union plumber. I was a Vista volunteer for Jim Maloney when he was the executive director of Community Action Committee of Danbury, and I started a food bank on Liberty Street. I managed 4 housing developments for the Housing Authority of the City of Danbury under Diana Burgos. And I still maintain the fountain for seniors at Glen Apartments. I'm well qualified to lead our city government for the next 4 years, but after that, I'm going to be just an all-around community volunteer and spend more time with my husband. I also meet the unwritten height requirement to be mayor of the city of Danbury.
Short people. I see Mayor Request in the back too. So we got it covered.
30 seconds.
Yeah, we kind of took a shot at the mayor for being all over the state in 2010 when Danbury really was having a tough time. Yes, I think he wasn't focused on our city. I think he wasn't focused on our problems. I think that's why we didn't have a response to the Savin report. I think it's why he only had his task force meet twice in 2.5 years. It's sad.
Okay. The final question of the evening, Emanuela.
The new economic development director will be responsible for generating economic growth throughout the city with a focus on downtown renewal efforts. Now, Danbury's downtown economy for the past 10 years has been by and large supported by small businesses owned by new immigrant groups. By people that are from new immigrant groups. So what are your plans to aid the specific needs of these small businesses so they continue open during these challenging times when the nature of this office has been to focus more on corporations?
Lynn?
No downtown business is going to survive whether it's owned by an immigrant or a non-immigrant unless there are people downtown with money in their pocket. So that's what we have to do. And as I said, we need to emphasize mixed uses, and we need to resolve this eyesore at the end of City Center that we call Kennedy Place. It's time to fish or cut bait. Let's do something with that. If it can't be luxury condominiums, let's put it to some use. We have to address parking in our downtown, or people aren't going to be able to rent office space there. They're going to go out to Apple Ridge. They're going to go out to all these corporate parks, because everyone drives to work, and we need that parking. And as I said, we need to keep Andrea Gartner. She is just a godsend. She's making people come downtown and creating business for everyone who has invested in our Main Street. And we need those walkways and pocket parks and gardens and playgrounds so that people have someplace to go to. So that's what I do, yes.
Thank you, Mark.
I see the position of Economic Development Director doing really 2 key things. One is serving as a staff liaison to the Danbury Main Street Partnership, which we'll announce once the selection is made for the Economic Development Director. Their job is going to be to be global, to look at Main Street in a strategic way, not to plan events, not to plan the Taste of Danbury, not to do those things, which are needed and are important and are certainly something that's appreciated, but to do the more global strategic thinking of changes that have to happen on Main Street, be they regulatory changes, be they infrastructure improvements. All those things will have to be touched by the partnership to be able to do that, and the director will be the staff liaison to that. So there'll be a sort of a laser-like focus, if you will, on Main Street. The second piece of that is it's important that we have somebody that's going to market the entire city, all 44 square miles. Right now, Wayne Shepherd has been doing that in my office, and it's time that that person will have to spend some time being able to market the community in the best way that they know how. So those two things will keep that person pretty busy. But just to kind of touch base quickly on downtown, there are a lot of businesses there that are manned by new Americans. We need to work with them closely to teach them not to narrowcast their products to one segment of the community, but to broadcast their products to all people in Danbury. There's some great restaurants downtown. I eat there all the time. However, a lot of folks may not go there because their menus may not be in English, and you may not know what they serve. So we've got to work with those folks to try to broadcast their services, broadcast their goods, because they're going to make more money and they're going to become more sustainable, and that's a good thing for all of us.
30 seconds.
And I think a big help would to be not to turn down projects like the brewery that was proposed for East Liberty Street because of some technicality in our zoning regulations. That's not good economic development, and it eliminates a lot of good beer.
30 seconds.
All I want to say is that we have an open door policy with anybody that wants to come and open a business, and there's a lot more to the story of the brewery than is worth getting into tonight. But the bottom line is that if we're going to be successful there, we have to get the people that own businesses on Main Street to care about the businesses themselves. That means that they got to do things like sweep their front walk when they come in the morning. Make sure that there's no litter around so the place is attractive. Look at their window dressings and the signs that are in the windows, and make sure that those broadcast their products to everybody in Danbury. When we start having those positive changes, we can definitely get more customers for them, and they'll make more money.
Okay, it is now time for the candidates to ask each other a question. Each candidate will have up to 30 seconds to ask a question. The other candidate will have 2 minutes to respond, and then the questioner will have 30 seconds rebuttal time or to follow up with a question, and the person being asked the question will have 30 seconds. So it's 30 seconds, 2 minutes, 30 seconds, 30 seconds. And the first question will be asked by Mark Bowden.
Thank you, Art. Lynn, as part of the Danbury 11 lawsuit, in June of last year, you were required to testify under oath because of your involvement on behalf of the plaintiffs. So I want to read back a real quick snippet of your testimony and then ask you a question. The question asked by the attorney was, do you believe that Mark Bowden has been a good mayor? And here's your answer. He hasn't been a bad mayor. We disagree on this particular issue, but I think you know that as a council, we meet once a month. There are 20 to 30 issues that we have to approve, and that 97% of the time, I'm voting with the mayor's position. So my question this evening is, which Lynn Tabersack should we believe? The one who testified under oath June 28th of 2010 and said that she agrees with the mayor's position 97% of the time, or the Lynn Tabersack who has made all sorts of claims tonight about my positions?
Lynn, you have 2 minutes.
I think everyone that has been here this evening is going to be able to make up their own mind about what I think about the mayor. We'd have to see the entire deposition to understand exactly what that statement is taken from. But I would like to tell people who sometimes confuse my involvement with social justice issues as something political. It's not. It's personal. I am very much involved in my faith community's social justice programs. We feed the hungry. We collect used clothing. We welcome the immigrants. We stand for peace. We support a food pantry. We work at the soup kitchen. I do many of these wonderful things because of my faith, and I'm not going to impose those views or those values on anyone else. For instance, I've been a part of the Peace Vigil at the Danbury War Memorial for 5 years. I hold up the Granny for Peace sign, and you can honk your horn at me or flip me the bird. I'm not looking to convert you to my path, but my path is second nature to me, and I'll walk that.
Okay, so I just want to ask my question again. So which Lynn Tabersack should we believe? The one who said she agrees with the mayor's position 97% of the time, or the one tonight who's not really sure what her position is?
Lynn, 30 seconds.
I have to tell you that 80% of the council agenda is approving donations from wonderful taxpayers like you to the city of Danbury. Mark and I agree that your donations are welcome.
Okay, Lynn, your turn to ask the mayor a question.
I have a very short 30-second question. Mark, why did you, the city of Danbury, waive inspections when you signed the contract to purchase the Emmanuel Lutheran School? You waived inspections for asbestos, for lead, for mechanical systems. We didn't even look under the hood or kick the tires. What was that all about?
Mark, 2 minutes.
We didn't waive inspections. We did multiple inspections of that building. We looked at it closely. I think the question that we had to ask ourselves once the economic tsunami hit was, what can we execute and how quickly we can build that building? And the reality is that during the same time that the referendum, remember, we had a purchase, and then a year later, the voters voted to do the work at the building. So there was about a year lag time in terms of actually executing that work. So, and by the way, the purchase of the building was approved by 15 of the 17 city council Democrats who sat on the council at that time. So the bottom line here is that we looked at the building and felt at that time it would be a good fit. Now we fast forwarded to this time, and we recognize that oil prices, for example, have basically doubled, if not more. Energy is much more expensive. A 2-story building will be much more to heat than a single-story building built on a slab. And then we looked at the cost of renovation versus the cost of new building. We actually would get a new building, brand new building, for less money than if we had renovated the building. So it made a good deal for the taxpayers. But at the end of the day, there's also a component here for Main Street. I want that facility close to Main Street. I want those employees close to Main Street. We've just spent an hour talking about how do we get more people down to Main Street. Well, those teachers, those paraprofessionals, that support staff will go to the restaurants, they'll go to the stores on Main Street, they'll park on Main Street. That'll be good for all of us to have that facility there. We're trying to create a learning corridor up and down Main Street. We've done it with Naugatuck Valley Community College. We'll do it with this building. And we can look to expand Naugatuck Valley Community College because they're bursting at the seams. We'll do that as well. That's how we help develop and bring people downtown that are going to spend money downtown. So for all those reasons, that building makes good sense for us. And by the way, we're one of the only cities in the state of Connecticut that has the guts, the courage to do what's right for the least among us, the most disadvantaged youth of this city, and build them their own building.
Lynn, 30 seconds.
Mark, but you didn't inspect before you signed the contract. And I understand that these disadvantaged kids are 2 classrooms short, and it hasn't even been built.
Mark, 30 seconds.
They're absolutely not 2 classrooms short, but look, at the end of the day, we did look at the building. We think it's a good fit for Danbury. I'm excited about this project. Our children ought to be excited about this project because I was proud to partner up with Jim Maloney and make this happen for our residents.
We will now hear the 3-minute closing statements from the 2 candidates. Lynn Tabersack will make the first closing statement.
Thank you, Art, and our media panel for providing this event so that the voters in Danbury could see our 2 mayoral candidates in action. I think it was a good debate with lots of ideas on how to make our city better, and now it's up to voters to decide. Do you want a mayor who will stick around and focus on the city's needs? I'm not planning any big career moves. I was born here in Danbury. My father ran a sign business here for over 50 years. John Esposito, the city's longest-serving council member, was his apprentice after his discharge from the Marine Corps. My mom was the head nurse on labor and delivery at Danbury Hospital for a whole generation of Danbury babies. I met my husband Bob here. He's a transplant from Brooklyn. But he came to Danbury as a teenager and was a standout on Danbury High's cross-country team. We've been married for 40 years. Our 3 children all attended the Danbury Public Schools, where my husband taught social studies with this guy for more than 40 years. Both of us are involved as volunteers in many local organizations. Bob serving his 2nd term on the Board of Ed, and our son Joe represents part of the city in Hartford. We did not come on the Mayflower, but you can take my commitment to Danbury and its future to the bank. It is time-tested and solid as a rock. I will be focused on Danbury every day. Mayor Boughton does have political ambitions. He won't deny that. In fact, I think he put it best most recently on Face the State when he said, "Never say never." He's one of the Republican Party's top prospects for higher office in our state. He wasn't successful in 2010 in his bid to become governor, but he wasn't here when we needed him either. Being our mayor has become Mayor Boughton's backup plan. Unlike the mayor, I plan to stick around. I have a brand new granddaughter who will be in the lottery for the Western Connecticut Academy for International Studies in January of 2017, and that's only 5 years from now. It's taken this mayor over 10 years to address the problem of school overcrowding, and he is only now getting started. Jasmine Vieira Tabersack can't wait 10 more years. Danbury's wonderful students, the educators in our public schools, and caring and concerned parents deserve better. I welcome your support on November 8th.
Once again, I want to thank the News Times, the Tribuna, WLAD, and all of you for attendance this evening. It has been an honor to lead our great city. I'm proud of my administration's accomplishments over the last several years. We've had new public safety initiatives, like a new police station, a new fire station, and new equipment. We've had new parks and acquired new open space. We've achieved a AAA bond rating, recognizing that Danbury's credit is of the highest possible caliber. We have low per capita tax rates, and we have the lowest sewer and water rates in the state. We are one of the safest cities in Connecticut, and a city with one of the lowest unemployment rates as well. And while the national economy has sputtered, and while joblessness has reached record heights, we have managed to continue to be an economic engine of Western Connecticut, with new, small, and medium-sized businesses opening up all around us. But as I mentioned in my opening statements, elections are about the future. They're not about the past. And while I'm proud of my record of accomplishment in Danbury, I'm more excited about the future of our city. I'm excited about the expansions of Danbury Hospital and Western Connecticut State University. I'm excited about the new businesses who have come to the Matrix Corporate Center and who decided to expand their operations in Danbury. I'm excited about the Danbury Main Street Partnership and the work they will do in our city center. But most of all, I'm excited about working with the residents of Danbury. We are great people from all over the world, united in the belief that we can work together to build a better city. Ladies and gentlemen, earlier tonight you heard that my opponent has stated under oath that she agrees with my positions 97% of the time. But honestly, this election is frankly not about me, and it's not about her. It's about you. This is your home. It's your neighborhood. It's your community. It's your city. And let me also say that I'm proud to the people who have put their name in to join my team. We have fielded a full slate of candidates who are ready to lead on December 1st. And I can guarantee you one thing about those people. We won't stop working until you start working. So tonight, I ask that you join our team. I ask that you join us as we work to improve our future, house by house, block by block, neighborhood by neighborhood. Join us as we continue to rebuild our infrastructure. Join us as we lay the foundation for a 21st century school system. Join us as we work to improve our Main Street. Join us because each member of our team believes that Danbury's best days lie yet ahead. God bless you, and may God bless our America.
I'd like to very much thank Mark Fountain and Lynn Taversack for giving up the time to come in tonight and talk to the public. And you congratulate you, both did a great job. Also like to thank the media for such excellent questions. And I would really like to thank all of you. You were an absolutely terrific audience, and it really made for a terrific debate tonight. We'll see you all at the polls on November 8th. Good night.